The story of Jesus begins in Bethlehem, a small town in Judea. This town, though modest and unassuming, was destined to be the birthplace of a figure who would change the course of history. A young woman named Mary, pledged to be married to a carpenter named Joseph, found herself miraculously pregnant. This was no ordinary pregnancy, it was a divine intervention that would fulfill ancient prophecies. An angel had visited her, proclaiming that she would give birth to the Son of God, the long-awaited Messiah. The angel's message was clear. Mary was chosen for a sacred purpose, one that would bring hope and salvation to many. Guided by faith, Mary and Joseph traveled to Bethlehem for a census decreed by the Roman Empire. The journey was long and arduous, but their unwavering belief in the divine plan gave them strength. The city was crowded, leaving them to find shelter in a humble stable, a place meant for animals. Despite the humble surroundings, the significance of the event was monumental. There, amidst the hay and livestock, Jesus was born. His birth, though in the simplest of settings, was a moment of profound importance. Word of his birth spread, drawing shepherds from nearby fields, guided by a brilliant star that had appeared in the sky. These humble shepherds were among the first to witness the miracle of his birth. This star, a celestial beacon, announced the arrival of the King of Kings, not in a grand palace, but in the humblest of settings. It was a sign that the world was about to change in ways unimaginable. The birth of Jesus, though simple in its surroundings, marked the beginning of a story that would forever change the world. This humble beginning was the dawn of a new era, one that would bring light and hope to countless generations. Jesus grew up in the small town of Nazareth. He lived a normal life, learning carpentry from his earthly father Joseph. As he grew, so did his wisdom and favor with God. When he reached the age of 30, he began his public ministry, traveling throughout Galilee and Judea. Jesus' teachings were revolutionary. He spoke of love, forgiveness, and compassion. He taught that God was a loving Father, not a distant deity. His words resonated with the people, offering them hope and a new way of living. He challenged the hypocrisy of the religious leaders of his time, urging them to focus on the true spirit of the law, rather than empty rituals. He taught that true faith came from the heart, not from outward appearances. Throughout his ministry, Jesus performed many miracles. He healed the sick, gave sight to the blind, and even raised the dead. These miracles were not mere spectacles, but acts of love and compassion. They revealed his divine power and the depth of his love for humanity. One of his most famous miracles involved the feeding of 5,000 people with just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. This miracle, demonstrating his ability to provide even in the face of scarcity, left the people astounded and filled with awe. Jesus also taught in parables, using simple stories to illustrate profound truths. The parable of the Good Samaritan, for example, taught the importance of compassion and love for one's neighbor, regardless of social status or background. Section 4. The Last Supper, a covenant sealed in blood. As Jesus' ministry reached its climax, he traveled to Jerusalem for the Passover festival. This was a significant journey, one that held deep spiritual and historical meaning for the Jewish people. The city was bustling with pilgrims who had come to celebrate this sacred tradition. He knew that his time was drawing near, and he wanted to spend his final hours with his disciples. These were the men who had followed him, learned from him, and shared in his mission. The weight of the moment was palpable as Jesus prepared to impart his final teachings. He gathered them for a final meal, now known as the Last Supper. This was not just any meal. It was a Passover meal, rich with symbolism and tradition. Jesus used this occasion to reveal profound truths. During this meal, Jesus broke bread with his disciples, telling them to take, eat, this is my body. This act was a powerful symbol, representing his impending sacrifice. The bread, broken and shared, was a tangible sign of his love and commitment. He then shared wine with them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you." The wine, rich and red, symbolized his blood that would soon be shed. This was a moment of deep connection and revelation. "For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." With these words, Jesus established a new covenant, one that promised redemption and forgiveness. In this profound act, Jesus instituted the sacrament of communion, a practice that would endure through the ages. This sacrament became a cornerstone of Christian worship, a way for believers to remember and participate in the mystery of Christ's sacrifice. a tangible reminder of his sacrifice and the new covenant he was establishing between God and humanity. The disciples, though not fully understanding at the time, would later grasp the significance of this moment. His words foreshadowed the events that were to unfold and the ultimate sacrifice he was about to make. This meal, this covenant, would forever change the course of history, offering hope and salvation to all who would believe. Section 5. Gethsemane's Garden and the Weight of the World. Following the Last Supper, Jesus and his disciples went to the Garden of Gethsemane. It was here that Jesus, knowing what awaited him, prayed in agony. The weight of the sins of the world pressed down on him. He prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Jesus, though divine, experienced the full depth of human emotion, wrestling with the immense burden he was about to bear. In that garden under the cover of night, Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' own disciples, betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver. Judas led the Roman guards and temple officials to Jesus, identifying him with a kiss. Jesus, despite knowing this betrayal, remained steadfast in his purpose. Section 6. Calvary's Hill, a sacrifice for all. Jesus was arrested and falsely accused. He was mocked, beaten, and condemned to death by crucifixion, a brutal form of punishment practiced by the Romans. He was forced to carry his own cross through the streets of Jerusalem towards Calvary, the place of his execution. On the cross, Jesus endured excruciating pain and suffering, yet even in his agony he cried out, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." His love and compassion extended even to those who crucified him. As darkness fell over the land, Jesus breathed his last and died. His death on the cross was the ultimate act of love and sacrifice, a ransom paid for the sins of humanity. Section 7. Resurrection's Dawn, a promise fulfilled. 3 days later, something extraordinary happened. The world was about to witness a miracle that would change the course of history forever. Early in the morning, on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and other women went to the tomb where Jesus had been laid to rest. They carried spices to anoint his body, their hearts heavy with grief and sorrow. But when they arrived, they were met with an astonishing sight: an empty tomb. The massive stone that had sealed the entrance was rolled away. An angel appeared and said to them, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, he is risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay." Overwhelmed with joy and amazement, the women ran to tell the disciples the incredible news. Their sorrow had turned into indescribable joy. Later, Jesus appeared to his disciples, offering proof that he had conquered death. He showed them his hands and his side, the marks of his crucifixion. His resurrection was not merely a historical event, but a triumph over sin and the grave. It was a divine victory that resonated through the ages. It confirmed his divinity and validated his message of love, forgiveness, and eternal life. Jesus' teachings took on a new depth and meaning, as his followers realized the true extent of his sacrifice and love. The resurrection of Jesus is the cornerstone of Christian faith, a pivotal moment that underscores the promise of redemption and salvation. It stands as a beacon of hope that transcends time and offers the promise of eternal life to all who believe in him. This event continues to inspire and transform lives, reminding us of the boundless love and grace of God.